Minister, you're welcome to the programme. First of all, let's look
evening,
at those inflation figures. Only, I think about 6 weeks ago, wasn't it, your government was saying 6.75% for the second quarter. That's what you were looking at. That was the expectation. We're now at 8.2%. So is it rising quicker and faster than you had hoped? And are these prices becoming embedded? And is the outlook now more uncertain?
Good evening, Ciara. It is the case that only last month we published the Stability Programme update, which essentially sets out the economic and fiscal forecasts for the country for the period ahead. And we did forecast that inflation would average at about 6.25% across the year. Certainly in the past number of weeks we have seen further instability. We've seen the terrible war in Ukraine have devastating consequences, first and foremost for the people of that country, but also significant economic consequences, dislocation in the energy markets and problems in global supply chain in respect to certain foods and other materials. So there is uncertainty in relation to the global economic outlook at this point in time, and I think we are going to be looking at elevated inflation for quite some time yet, though we do expect that it will begin to moderate across the second half of next year. And we acknowledge as a government the real problems that this is causing in the day-to-day lives of people. Many people are struggling. That is why we brought forward a set of exceptional measures outside of the normal budgetary cycle. But we have to now make sure that first of all we can continue to fund those measures, such as the VAT reduction, the reduction in excise on fuel and so on, and that come budget time that we have adequate resources to support people to the end of this year and through next year as well. And that is the priority of government. We were
to be clear, sorry, Minister, to cut across you, just to be clear, because people at home are panicking and people are worried, the message from the government is we've gone as far as we can. There's been $2 billion on the table considering the budget of last year and the extraordinary measures you talked about. We've gone as far as we can for now. The next measures will be in October.
So we have to continue to fund many of the measures that we've already introduced to make sure that they can continue right through to October. And we do have to heed the advice of the Fiscal Advisory Council when they say to us that we have to strike a delicate balance between intervening and supporting people, which we have done, and we need to continue to fund those measures on the one hand, and on the other hand not adding to inflation and not making the situation any worse, because we have to work our way through this. What we're doing right now between myself, Minister Donoghue, our officials and colleagues across government is to agree what is the appropriate budgetary stance going into the budget for 2023.
Okay, and
that means deciding how much money should we be spending. And we are engaging in dialogue with the social partners. We're involved in public sector pay negotiations as well. So we have to tie together all of those threads in a way that gets us through a very challenging and difficult period of uncertainty in relation to the global economy.
And Minister, you did mention the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council today. They also said that there is some space for this government to target the poorer households. They said there is $2.5 billion in unallocated funds, so there is space for the government to move before October.
Well, they weren't quite explicit that they meant before October. You have to recognise what we've already done, which I think is very significant and exceptional in nature to do it outside of a normal budgetary cycle, and then to ensure that we have adequate resources to make a tangible difference across all of this year and indeed next year. Because the reality
is, Minister,
we cannot
people are feeling
assume
that tangible difference, because that's not what we're hearing.
I think we have to be honest with people, Ciara. It's not possible for any government in the developed world to bring in measures that completely offset the impact of this terrible war. There will be an economic price for all of us to pay, unfortunately. It pales into insignificance compared to the humanitarian price that the people of Ukraine are paying. But this is a level of inflation that has not been seen for 40 years. 12 of the 19 Eurozone countries have a level of inflation that is higher than Ireland's. So this is a global problem. We have to work our way through it in a coordinated and an intelligent manner. We've brought in a series of initiatives to date. Our focus now is on making sure that we have the right package and the right balance in respect of the budget in October, and that will involve discussions with the social partners at the National Economic Dialogue in 3 weeks' time, as well as ongoing discussions we're having with the trade unions and the employer bodies. We do not want to make a difficult situation any worse, and there is potential, if governments make the wrong moves, it could contribute and actually compound the level of inflation that's there.
As you mentioned there, your department is in the middle of these public sector pay talks. Given the inflationary environment that we are seeing, given the fact that it's worse than perhaps we predicted even 6 weeks ago, how far beyond the current pay terms are you willing to go?
So we are involved in negotiations at the moment, and we'll be using the services of the Workplace Relations Commission. This involves about 365,000 public servants who are represented by the Public Services Committee of Congress. From my perspective, I want to ensure that we have industrial peace. That's important for Ireland and for our economy, and also to have certainty about the public service pay bill. I've acknowledged there will be a need to go beyond the current pay terms of building momentum, but of course the detail of that is a matter for the negotiations that are currently underway. We do need to ensure, Ciara, that we secure the economic improvements that have been achieved in recent times. We now have over 2.5 million people at work in Ireland, which is more than the number we had in 2019 pre-COVID-19. It has exceeded all expectations, even in the economic recovery plan that we brought forward last year as a government. So we have to make sure we protect competitiveness while at the same time doing all we can to safeguard the living standards of our people at a time of extraordinary challenge and change across the world.